Okay, so everyone is here. So let's start. All right. So Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. So I am Dr. Sadri from CPD, and I would like to welcome all of you to our blended learning support and blended learning substitute training. Okay, so to get the barakah for today's training, so let's recite Umul Kitab Al-Fatihah. All right, so let me introduce you to our speaker for today, who is Associate Professor Dr. Nurbiha Abdul Shukor. So she is from University Technology Malaysia, and Deputy Director of SIDA and also Chairman for Majlis E-Learning IPTA Malaysia. All right, so without further ado, the session is yours, Dr. Nurbiha.
Right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. Thank you very much, Dr. Sadri, for your introduction. I'm going to share my slide. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just going to share it here. I was thinking about sharing another screen. Right. Okay, I hope everybody can see my screen. Yeah, it's good.
Yes, Dr. Nurbiha, we can see your screen.
Right. So I'm going to talk about blended learning substitution, I assume in specific, but I'm going to talk about blended learning in general and how we have been implementing blended learning in Malaysia higher education institution, because I think that would be the area of my expertise, maybe in Malaysia per se. Okay, so I'm going to cover what is blended learning and the directions of blended learning in Malaysia, the implementation methods, and doing the calculation. If I may share a little bit on how can we calculate our student learning time in our courses so that we can implement blended learning. And a little bit on designing blended learning. And when we want to implement blended learning, we have to prepare our self-instructional materials. So I'm going to touch a little bit on how can we prepare our self-instructional materials, what are the properties of self-instructional materials that we need to have when we want to blend our lesson between online and face-to-face. So first thing first, why blended learning? There are so many researchers and findings saying that when we blend our lesson, we get both advantages of online as well as face-to-face teaching and learning session. So, with online learning only, we might lacking in the personal and human touch, but we can cover that in face-to-face teaching and learning instruction. So there are so many findings saying that when we have balance of both, then we can gain the advantages or the benefits from both medium. So however, in Malaysia, we have certain percentages on how can we blend online and face-to-face teaching and learning session. So we have certain percentages that serve as a guideline only for higher education institution to implement their blended learning session. And when we talk about blended learning in Malaysia higher education institution context, it is a formal education. So you implement blended learning, it is by design, and it is not by chance. But what I mean by chance is that because tomorrow I have certain things to do in certain time, so I'm going to blend my lesson. So we hope that blended learning implementation is not by chance, but it is by design. So this means that you already have in your mind which topics or in which week that you plan to have your session in a blended way. So this helps to prepare your students and yourself to plan your teaching and learning session for blended learning. So I hope we do not implement blended learning in our course in a chance way. I mean to say that because I have some things to do, so today I have to convert my teaching and learning session immediately to online. So I hope that does not happen. So it is better to have your teaching and learning session, any teaching and learning session, whether it is face-to-face or online, in a design way. So when we have our teaching and learning session in a blended way, so part of it will be through online learning platforms. So some people say that it is not necessarily online in blended learning session. It can be a technology assisted learning session. So when we say that it is a blended learning, some say that part of that learning session is face-to-face and part of that is assisted by technology, or part of that is online learning. However, in Malaysia higher education institution context, we normally when we talk about blended learning, we always say that part of that is physical and face-to-face, part of that is online learning session. So I'm going to go deeper and we are going to hold into that definition for our entire session. Okay. So this online learning experience is integrated with our brick and mortar teaching and learning session, of course. Okay, so this is the directions of blended learning implementation in Malaysia. So we initially have this idea of having blended learning session in our teaching and learning from the document of Dasar E-Pembelajaran Malaysia. This is a policy document about e-learning, the directions of e-learning in Malaysia, in which it says that by 2025, 70% of our courses is implemented in a blended way. However, during that time, it is not clearly specified what kind of blended learning is going to be implemented. So this has been made clear from 2015 until 2022. The way we implement blended learning is that we use teaching and learning online to support physical and face-to-face teaching and learning session. But until when the pandemic hits, so coincidentally, when the pandemic hits in 2020, so we already have a blended learning substitution guideline. So this guideline says that rather than you use online teaching and learning session to support physical and face-to-face teaching and learning, we can also substitute our face-to-face teaching and learning session to online teaching and learning session. So that's why we have this PTS and PTG. PTS is pembelajaran teknologi as a support, sokongan, and then PTG means pembelajaran teradun, pembelajaran teradun gantian. So pembelajaran teradun sokongan dan pembelajaran teradun gantian. So we try to have this pembelajaran teradun gantian, which is blended learning substitution, in which we replace part of our teaching and learning session with entirely online session with certain percentages, that is 30 up to 79% of our online teaching and learning session delivery. So this is how we have been progressing since 2015, since we have this Dasar E-Pembelajaran Negara, our national document on e-learning. So now we are trying to move forward to blended learning substitution, and again, we want to have a blended learning substitution when we replace part of our teaching and learning, physical teaching and learning, to online. We want that to occur by design and not by chance. So that's why we have this session on how can we design our blended learning teaching and learning session. So this is, when you say it is blended, and I think if I may add, in Malaysia higher education institution context, we also have open and distance learning, which is ODL. So open and distance learning means that 80% until 100% of our teaching and learning is carried out entirely online. So blended stays in this 30 to 79% area. So when you have less than 30% of your teaching and learning delivery carried out online, that means your course is actually completely face-to-face course. So we hold on to this definition as well in Malaysia, but what we say is that if it reaches 80%, this means your course is can be defined as an ODL courses. So 80 until 100% online, that means your course is part of an ODL program. So when we talk about ODL program later on, if someone might ask, the ODL definition by MQA, they have two parts. They have definitions of online at course level, and they have online definition at program level. So I'm not going to touch into that. But we are talking about online at course level. So this means that 30% to 79% of your SLT is carried out online in your course, not in a program. Okay. So when we have blended learning session, what has to change? Number one is our student learning time for teaching and learning activities. And our teaching method has to change. Our learning materials preparation has to change. We have to prepare self-instructional materials for them to learn online. And I put here assessment as a question mark because not many instructors, not many professors are keen to change the way they carried out their assessment. Most of them still prefer to carry out assessment in face-to-face and physical methods. But you can also change the way you assess your students. If you want to assess them online, this always can be done. This can always be done. Okay. So because there are so many things that we have to change, and we want this again by design, so the Ministry of Higher Education has produced this guideline. The guideline is called Garis Panduan Pembelajaran Teradun Gantian. It is a guideline for blended learning substitution, which has been introduced in 2020. So this document explains about what it means by blended learning substitution and to what extent you can replace your physical and face-to-face teaching and learning session to online, and how can you do that, how can you calculate that, and so on. Okay, so most of this discussion is available on in that guideline. You can get that the guideline from mapta.org. I think IIUM also disseminate this document to all their academic staff. Okay, so I'm just going to discuss what are the things inside. So first thing first, because we have blended learning support and blended learning substitute, so we have to clearly differentiate this one. So when we were talking about blended learning to support face-to-face teaching and learning session, so we call that as PTS. The way what we advise our academicians to do is that you at minimum, you have to share a course information online. You have to prepare at least 7 learning materials online, carried out learning activities, 3 learning activities, and carried out assessments online, at least 2 times of your assessment. However, at this point, previously, we talk about number of items. Why? Because it is easier for higher education institution to carry out monitoring measures. You know, we can tell that, okay, this course is carried out in a blended way, in a blended supportive way. So this time around, for when we want to substitute our student learning time, part of our face-to-face session to online, so this time around, we are using student learning time. So we have to calculate student learning time, and we did not explicitly say that how many items you have to share online, how many activities that you have to share online. We just detail out the percentages of student learning time. So you can play around with the percentages and then detail out the number of things that you want to do online. So that is what happened in substitution, in blended learning substitution. And today we are going to go detail into blended learning substitution. So in blended learning substitution, what the document proposed is that 40% of the students' learning time is dedicated for learning materials, and 40% of the students' learning time is dedicated for learning activities, 20% of it is dedicated for assessment. So, but when we talk about, before we go on to when I said that it is 40% of student learning time, of course, we have to understand about student learning time. I just explained this a little bit about student learning time. So what we mean by student learning time is that it is the effective learning time or student effort of learning in order to achieve the specified learning outcome. So this means that student learning time also include their independent learning. So when they are reading text, when they are discussing with their friends at their own time. So the guided learning time, the official contact time and the guided learning time as we know it is that when we meet them face-to-face in the dedicated timetable schedule, that is our official contact time. So all of this time is equal to student learning time. So when we do that, so we always go by credit. So we know that 1 credit hour course is equal to 40 hours of student workload, or maybe in MQA document, they call it as 40 hours of notional hours. So if you have a 3 credit course, that means you have 40 hours, 40 notional hours times 3, then you have 120 notional hours. So these 120 notional hours is what we call as student learning time. So when we say that 30% of this student learning time can be carried out online, so this means that you have at least 36 hours, okay, for 3 credit hour course, you have at least minimum 36 hours in which you can carry out your teaching and learning session activity online. So you have 36 hours, you distribute that throughout the course. Okay, maybe up to this point, can I maybe take questions before we go to the calculation? Or if I...
Dr. Biha, I have a question.
Yes.
All right, you mentioned that 36-hour online, that one. How do we define that? Is it
define which one?
The 36-hour online, too, when you divide it by 120 hours, right? So how do we define this 36-hour online? I mean, through our activity or assessment or...
So as I said just now, when we want to have a blended learning course, minimum percentage is that 30% until 79%. So if I have a 3 credit hour course, then I have 120 notional hours. From these 120 notional hours, I can carry out 30% of it online. Okay, so when I calculate that, so 30% from 120 notional hours, this means I have 36 hours that I can carry out online with my students. So these 36 hours, as I said just now, what can we do with these 36 hours online? You can do activities, learning activities online, you can do assessment online, and you can prepare learning materials online. But how much learning materials, how much learning activities, and how much assessment that I can carry out online? So you use the 40%, 20% percentage just now, this one. So this is how you divide, how you make use of the 30% that you have calculated. If you were thinking that, I want to carry it out, at least I need more hours for students to carry out their teaching and learning activities online. So you can maybe have 40% of 120 notional hours. That means you can have 0.4 times 120. That means you can have 48 hours online. So from that 48 hours online, you divide that into 40, 40, 20 when you want to carry out your teaching and learning session online in the course. So I'm talking about 48 hours in the course, not on that one session, because when we meet our one session, when students in official contact hour, we meet them, for example, 3 hours, because we have 3 credit hour course. So we meet them in contact hours is 3 hours. And this does not mean that in that 3 hours, you divide that into 40, 40, 20. Can you get what I mean? So this 40, 40, 20 is based on overall calculation of the hours that we have in that course. for that course. Okay.
Okay. Can I so ask?
Yes, Prof.
Because I think there's a lot of questions that coming in. I received quite a few emails asking like, you are looking at from 120 hours, notional hours, right? But we have around, I think 48 in average. I think we have most of the course have 48 contact hours, guided learning. So just now you mentioned that is, it depends on how we distribute, but it actually based on the 120 notional hours. So there has been a lot of inquiries. Is it possible to replace the guided hours solely with PTG? As far as I understood, it shouldn't be, right? Because otherwise then it will be ODL. If no guided hours, if no contact hours at all. But what's your perspective on this?
Oh, yeah, we, okay, based on the guideline, what it means is that this 40-40-20 can also covers independent learning. This is what the guideline says. So for example, I have 120 hours. So as I said just now, SLP means that you can have contact hours. You can also have independent hours, independent learning hours. So the question is that, can I take some of the independent learning hours and not only carried out this online teaching and learning session only for the contact hours, the guided learning hours? The answer is yes, you can take that independent learning hours. However, this also depends on the university's policy on what you want to implement, how you want to work around it. For my university, for example, yes, we only touch on guided learning hours, but in this guideline, it allows you to also take the learning hours from independent learning hours. So this means that 36 hours is only from contact hours, not also from independent learning hours. Do you get what I mean?
So if it's only from guided learning hours, say the contact hours is 48, so this is
times 48.
So out of the 48, then you take this
0.3 times 48. Yes.
Okay.
That means 14 hours. It depends on the guideline does not say so. The guideline says it has to be notional hours for overall course, but if you want to do that in but it depends on the higher education institution to dictate that one, to dictate out that one. But for my university, we specify certain percentages so that it does not reach the level of ODL, as you say.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so from that 120 hours, so I get, if I want to carry out 30% of it online, so that means I have 36 hours. So what do I do with that 36 hours? So I carried out 40% of my time for students to go through my learning materials, 40% of their time to carry out learning activities, 20% of their time to carry out assessment. So this means that you have this 15 hours for learning materials, 15 hours for activities, and 7 hours for assessment. So this is because I times 40% means 0.4 times 36 hours that I have for the online session. That means I have 15 hours for learning materials to cover. And I have 15 hours for learning activities and 7 hours for assessment. Okay. So this is directly from the guidelines, similar calculation. Okay. So it is based on number of hours. Okay, not number of items. So in blended learning support, we base our calculation based on a number of items. So in blended learning substitution, we calculate number of hours based on number of hours. Okay, what can you do? So these are just examples. You can have recorded learning session for your materials, and then for your activities, you can have forum session, and your assessment, you can have quizzes, reflections, and all. But I'm sure this is familiar to all of you, but I want to highlight about the proposed allocation of SLP. So in face-to-face teaching and learning, this is what being proposed by MQA about, for example, if we have face-to-face teaching and learning lecture, when we teach, it is 1 hour. But for them to digest the content, they actually need, of 1 hour lecture session, they actually need 1 to 2 hours. So this means that independent learning, their self-learning is actually 2 hours. So, and so on. These are all proposed allocation of SLT if it is carried out face-to-face, in a face-to-face session. So I'm going to highlight about SLT for blended learning session. So these guidelines is also available in Malaysia e-learning higher education guidelines. So you can refer to that book. I think we have that in our website as well. So when you want to prepare, as I said just now, you already have in your mind, so I can prepare learning materials that students have to cover approximately for 15 hours. So how do I estimate from that? How many items should I prepare? So let's say if you want to have your blended learning session includes you teaching them in a live instruction, synchronous live instruction like what we're doing right now. So how do I calculate the number of SLT for that? Okay, if you have a synchronous live session with your students, the number, the time spent or the student learning time is equivalent to the hours that you spend synchronously. Like for example, if I teach my students in a Zoom session for 1 hour, this means their SLT is also 1 hour. If you give materials for your students to read, for example, and then you have to calculate that number of screen time, average time spent on screen. So this one is calculated. This is actually just general calculation. It still depends on, for example, if you want to go detail, you can go to how many words and so on. But the guideline is, this is just a general guidelines. You can estimate for a screen time between 3 to 5 minutes per screen, because it also depends on whether your students are fast reader or slow reader and so on. But you can estimate between 3 to 5 minutes per screen. So when you want your students to go through certain things on screen, do estimation based on this number of minutes as well. Or if you have other runtime media, for example, you want them to watch a video, you want them to carry out certain activities with simulation, you want them to watch animation. So these depend on the actual length of the video and the animation, but this one is based on activity. But for watching video, if you also have to consider if they are going to repeat the video playing and then they retesting the activities in the runtime media, so you have to also estimate on that. Have estimation of that. Okay. So again, time required to consume content such as by reading an article, watching a self-paced instructional video, playing instructional game video. This also has to be considered, the self-learning time, student learning time, sorry. Okay. And also, if you want them to carry out activities such as forum. So the activities such as forum or discussion, if you want them to carry out online, the estimation duration of student learning time is similar if you carried out these activities face-to-face. If, for example, you have a face-to-face discussion with your students in your class, let's say you estimate you want to have that for, you need at least 40 minutes, for example, for discussion, or 20 minutes for discussion. So that 20 minutes is also the same duration for online forum discussion session. Okay, this is what it says. So estimate on that. However, usually what we want our students to do is that once they have a discussion, you want them to prepare presentation. So do not forget about the times that they have to spend to prepare for the presentation, like doing the presentation slide and things like that. That is what we often forget. So we ask them to do discussion and we just calculate the time for discussion and not the time to prepare the presentation that we want them to prepare upon discussion. So that has to be anticipated as well when we want to calculate for SLP, especially for blended learning, because we do not want to overdo. Sometimes you were thinking that, okay, my activity today is just about, having a forum discussion, a group discussion. We think that it is too little. But efforts in preparing and doing things for group discussion is so time consuming that we often forget about the time that they have to spend in doing group discussion. Okay, so that's the estimation. Up to that point, maybe some question. Is there any question? Okay, all good. All right, so designing for blended learning for PTG per se, I would say first step would be to map the overall SLT for the course. So what happened in the guideline, in the PTG guideline, they advise to map the overall SLT for the course. However, you can also blend your lesson in specific tasks, blend your lesson in specific teaching and learning session, like for example, for today, I'm meeting my students today for 3 hours, I'm going to blend my session today. So within these 3 hours, I'm going to blend, part of the session will be carried out online, part of the session will be carried out face-to-face. That can also happen. But you have to accumulate all these hours throughout the course as well. Okay, so but I'm going to look, we are going to talk about mapping the overall SLT for the course. And then if you look into literature, there are so many blended learning models that you can use. And then we have to go to building our self-instructional material, and then we have to go through the time again and refine it and iterate what is the suitable SLT. And you have to look again whether the things that you have chosen for your students, the things that you're going to blend, whether it is overdoing or is it too less. Okay, so this is I use my university course outline template. So what we did is that we have specified whether our lecture is going to be physical or is it online. If it is online, then is there any other independent learning that that is going to happen as well in certain topics. So you can also have part of your, for example, topic 1 is to part of it to be delivered physically and part of it to be delivered online. This can also happen. Okay, it depends on the planning of the lesson. Okay, so why you have to, again, why this has to be specified first? Number 1, students will be more ready when they know that what is going to happen next week. Okay, so they know, okay, I need to prepare for online. There are things that I need to do online, or I do not need to be I do not need to attend to physical classes next week, so they are more prepared about the things that they have to do. Okay, so plan this one for your blended learning session. Okay, and then we start building our self-instructional materials. So I just took some of these things that we need to have in having a good self-instructional materials. So when we build our self-instructional materials for blended learning session, it is quite different than having your technology to support your face-to-face teaching and learning session. It is quite different for PTG compared to PTS. In using technology to support teaching and learning session physically, you are there. You are always there to give them instruction. But if you have certain time in your teaching and learning session in which you are not entirely there, so you have to build self-instructional material. That's why when we have blended learning as a supporting to our face-to-face teaching and learning session, we do not entirely emphasize on building self-instructional material. But when we have blended learning substitution, we need to have this in place, building self-instructional material. Because when you want to replace your face-to-face teaching and learning session into online session, you need a self-directed learning material for students to go through on their own without you being around. Most of the time, I would have the perception that although you blend your lesson, this still means that you are there. But sometimes this is not happening. If you are blending your lesson, but when it is online, then you are not there, you have to prepare your self-instructional material. Okay, a good blending session would be that you are there, although it is online or it is face-to-face. But if you are not there in the online learning session, then you have to prepare your self-instructional materials for them to go through without you being around. So these are the properties of self-instructional materials, a good self-instructional materials. So it has to define what it is to be learned. You have to understand, okay, I developed this video because it is going to teach them about this and this and this. It provides information, it should give example, it should explain, it should questions. You have set the learning tasks both for individuals and for groups. You have markings of work, you have answers to learners' question, and so on. Okay, you can read on later on. I'm going to show you an example of what I did. Okay, this is where I blend my lesson. And the way I blend this lesson is that I'm going to meet them only 10 minutes. In the first 10 minutes, and then the rest of it, they have to go through the self-instructional materials that I prepare for them. So I have instruction on the 10-minute session, and then I prepare the pre-recorded video. It's not that I teach live and then I record the session. No, I prepare a pre-recorded video, and then once they have done watching the pre-recorded video, I have a series of activities, and I wrote all this instruction in the dedicated platform. So without me being around, they can go through these things on their own. Although I did meet them at the beginning of the class for 10 minutes. So this is how I blend my lesson, and I calculate the number of hours that they have to spend for watching my lesson 1 Introduction to Computer Science video. I calculate the duration of the video because I pre-recorded this video. I calculate the hours that they have to spend for this class activity 1. And then I also calculate the time that they have to spend for reading my notes. And this is just a simple poll that I always do at the end of my class. So this is an example of blending a teaching and learning session in that specific topic. So I have more or less similar format when I want to teach topic 2, topic 3, topic 4, and so on. This is how I do it, and I blend my entire topics. So there is, I think only the week that we meet entirely physical is for a presentation session and for assessment. And also I have consultation session in which I carried out that face-to-face. But other than that, this is the format that I use. So I meet them initially in the first 10 minutes, and then I have prepared the pre-recorded video. I recorded that earlier, and then they have class activity, and then sometimes I meet them again after, if the class is about to end, like for example, 10 minutes in the end, I meet them again to discuss what are the things that they don't understand from the video and lessons that they have gone through. So most of my 40 weeks meeting is in this format. So this is how I blend my lesson, but I prepare the pre-recorded videos. I did not teach them live. I teach them through the pre-recorded video lessons, and that's why I can have the number of hours calculated in a more detailed way. So I know exactly the number of hours that the students have to spend. So when you prepare your self-instructional material, this is what I read from the literatures. You can do it in 3 ways. Number 1, when you prepare your self-instructional material, it can be in the format of tell and test. Tell and test means that you give them lessons and then you test their understanding. You do a simple assessment on the things that you have taught in your videos or in your instructions, okay, when you are delivering your lesson. So this is a very, I would say that behavioral way of delivering teaching and learning session is not really meaningful, but this is the simplest format that you can do. Okay, I do not recommend this one because it is quite passive, but this is what you can do. Okay, another way is that you can do your self-instructional materials in a tutorial format. So tutorial means that you guide them step by steps, and then you ask them to do things. So you can have your self-instructional material in the form of a tutorial session, and you can have a more active way and engaging way of learning in your self-instructional material by having reflective action guide. So this is where maybe you set a task or set a project for them to do, and then they do that on their own, but you have to decide on the instructions clearly. So this is what I did for a reflective action guide. So I list down the things that they have to do, and then the instruction and the task and the references that they can refer to. So you can do this as well, and you can also mix between tell and test. You can mix between reflective action guide with tutorial. You can mix reflective action guide with tell and test. So you can mix around so that it is more engaging and more meaningful for your students. So when you are building self-instructional material, what's important is that if you see here, this is how we write our instructions so that your self-instructional material has to be independent. Independent meaning to say that the students can go through your learning material without you being around. It has to be very clear that you are not needed in that platform. You have to make the instruction clear in such a way that you are not needed in that platform because they understand what they have to do. But of course, they can come to you for your facilitation and so on. But meaning to say that they do not have to come to you again, then where do I submit this to ask menial things about the task? Okay, so that is a good self-instructional material. It has to stand on its own. It has to be clear. The instruction cannot be ambiguous, and it has to be direct. So what's important in SIM is that it has to have these three properties. Okay, if not, then your students will come to you asking you menial things, and which I assume that you do not want to deal with that because you know it's already there. So you just have your students just have to read and go through things, and then they can do that on your own. Okay. So another way is that if you do not plan to leave your students, just now what I did is that I met them entirely online. So I met them in synchronous session, and then I have them going through certain activities online, and then I meet them again in live synchronous session. Another way for you to do that is that you can have this rotation model. So in which you meet them face to face, but there are activities that you want them to do online. And then, you know, this is like station rotation model. So, but basically what you do is that you meet them face to face. Okay, they come to your class, but after 10 minutes, for example, okay, now I want you to do these activities online. And then you meet them and then you teach them again face to face. And then, okay, I have another activity for you to do online. So now you do that online. That is also blending your lesson as well. But again, you also have to estimate how many minutes, how many time that you want them to spend online for you to calculate their student learning time. So this is an example of station rotation. You have sometimes you're meeting them face to face, and then after certain minutes you ask them to do online activities, and then you discuss face to face again, and so on. Okay, this is also blended learning session. There are so many ways for you to do that, and it depends on your creativity of blending your session. It's just that you need to be aware of the student learning time. So the first step, what I did is that I asked them to do online activities that is for them to explore certain concepts, and then we go to building their concept, and finally summarizing their knowledge and instruction that they receive on that day. Okay. And finally, the last step, after you have planned, after you have things that you have planned, it's good that you reflect on the student learning time. Because as I said, in blending our sessions, sometimes we tend to overdo, and sometimes we are giving them, too little. So I highly recommend for you to explore this tool. We call it as learningdesigner.org. So it is an open source platform developed by UCL. So I always do this because they can estimate how many hours of your activity that you carried out online and face-to-face. That is one thing. And how many of your activities are passive activities and how many activities are active activities. So you can go here. So this is learningdesigner.org. Maybe not every day you write your lesson plan in learning.org, in learningdesigner.org, but at least once in your lifetime or once in a semester, try to reflect on how many things that you have been giving your student. Okay, you might not have the time to do this every day, every time you teach, of course, but have a self-check on the things that you give to your student once in a while. Okay, so it is a free platform, so you can always register. I have my account. So what it can do with that, it can estimate. So you just key in your lesson plans. Okay, I have mine. For example, this one. Okay, so you can key in the title of your topic for that day, and then the learning hours that you plan, the size of a class, and so on. And then this is where you can edit things. Okay. Now, if you see here, when we write our outcome and all, so I can add PLA. PLA is teaching and learning activities. So for the first outcome, so this is my first outcome, difference between logical and arithmetic operators. So I can decide whether I want them to read, watch, and listen, or I want them to discuss, collaborate, investigate, or so on. So of course, read, watch, and listen is a passive activity. Okay, they use the blue for acquisition of knowledge, so ACQ. So I have 29% of my teaching and learning activities that is acquisition of knowledge. You know, this means that they are sitting and watching and listening things from me. Read, watch, and listen is blue in color. And then you have, and next, for example, after I instruct them on the things that they have to do, here they have, I want them to read. After they read, I want them to, for example, discuss on the types of logical operators. So I want them to collaborate or discuss, and so on. So then I move on to the next learning outcome, and then another learning outcome, and decide what are the things that I want them to do. So every time I decide on the things that I want them to do, I can also dictate the time here. This is based on minutes. And then this one, you can click this one for 28 students, and then you can click here if you are around. This is teacher is present. If it is tick, it means teacher is present. If it is cross, this means that you are not around. And this earth sign, this means that it is online. If it is an X, it means that it is face-to-face session and it's not online. So I can click on that. And this is, when I click this one, it is asynchronous. Sorry, when I click that one, it becomes synchronous. When I click that one, it becomes asynchronous. So, and then these are just the resources that you want to put in. So once you have this one, you can have a go through on how many percentages. It will generate the percentages of activities, type of activities that you have for that session. Whether it is too passive, it is too active, or too many things that you ask them to do. So you can save that. They will produce a report for you. Okay. And then you can export that one. So this is just something that I highly encourage you to do once in a while. Maybe not every day. We don't do lesson plans every day. That one I know. All of our lesson plans are in our head, of course. So we can do this once in a while, okay, to check on things, to check on the things that we have been doing with our students. Are we overdoing things, or it's just, you know, things are too passive, things are too active, or what? Okay, so they will generate the Microsoft Word for us, and then you can see in detail here. So how many percent is read, watch, and listen? I did not have any investigation carried out, discussion, okay, and then how many minutes are involving the whole class, or is it individual, or is it in group? And then whether how many percent it is online, or is it face-to-face? Okay, they will provide you the details of it. How many percent you are present and not present. Okay, this is just for you to reflect on how you have been doing, how you have been planning your student learning time. Okay, for that teaching and learning session for your course. So I encourage you to refine your timing based on this one. Okay, I think that ends my session. I think I told the organizers that it will be very short, but I'm going to take questions, maybe.
So any question from the participants? We have about 89.
Mapping, there's a question on the mapping of this topic 1 with the SLT in the format that the speaker shared. Sorry, what does that mean? Mapping of topic 1 with the SLT in the format.
Dr. Azlin, are you there? So can you elaborate further on the question?
This format, is it this one?
The UTM format, okay.
Okay, so what kind of mapping are you looking for? This, okay, do you mean that, for example, for topic 1, I'm going to have that physical. So I do not have any planning for blending my session. Okay, so here, for example, for topic 4, I have that in online session. Okay, I have that 3 hours of online, of contact hours online. I want to do lectures online, and I have 3 hours of independent learning session. So is this what you mean by that? Or maybe I can share my entire course plan. Hold on. I'm not sure whether IIUM has this template, but what we prepare in UTM is that we prepare for the automatic calculation of SLT so that it is easier for everyone to see. So for example, okay, this is my course. We have this learning analytics course, and then we have a section for lecturing online and the independent learning of online. Okay, so we have altogether, is this correct? Okay, we have to altogether 120 hours. So once we indicate in which area that we want things to be carried out online, then it will calculate SLT for online component. This is 50%. So what I have distributed based on the way I distribute things that I want them to do online, the distribution of hours in this lesson plan, in this course information, sorry, I have 50% of my teaching and learning session. There are 50% of that, not my teaching and learning session. There are 50% of the teaching and learning materials and activities and assessment will be online. This is what it means by 50%. This 50% here. but this is auto-calculated from the things that I have indicated online here. So online lecture here, I have 3 hours. I have online asynchronous 3 hours. This is, we were estimating this one for reading online text. Okay, so this is not necessarily meeting them. Okay, so here, this is synchronous session. That means that I meet them and maybe I have some activities online with them. Okay, and we also have independent learning activities that they have to do. So all of this is total up, you have 50% of that online. That means I have how many hours? 0.5 times 120, that I have 60 hours online. 60 hours of learning time that students have to spend online. So this is what it means.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
I just would like to ask you about the student feedback. Because you're having 70% of your time with the online session, right? Okay, what is the feedback that you get from the students compared to if you have the sessions whereby you have face-to-face in terms of the effectiveness of learning, teaching and learning? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. So what my students value the most is the pre-recorded video, because it also depends on the nature of my course. My course is related to doing things, practical things, such as, because I'm teaching them software. So I ask them to do certain animation, and it always has to go, they have to go through step-by-step processes to understand how things move and things like that. So they really like the pre-recorded video, because when I meet them initially online, and then at the end of the synchronous online session, I have another 10 minutes of live session with them. They will raise certain questions that they observe from the video and from the activity that I gave. I think this feedback varies based on the subject that you teach. For my case, I think it is quite relevant, because when you want to practice certain things, you need to repeat the video again and again to see whether you are doing the steps correctly to get the desired output that you want. So that's why they really like the pre-recorded video. And I put, for example, for one topic, I have at least 5 recorded videos. If I'm not, okay, I'll try to share my feedbacks. And for one topic, I have 5 up to 6 pre-recorded videos that I put them in maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes of recording session. I put them in a very small video size, so that, you know, they can go through bits by bits of my video. So they really like it that way, and they do not have to watch all the things at the same time. So after one short video, then they do another thing, and then after one short video, they do another things that they have to do. So I would say my case would not be ideal for everyone. But I think you know best, and we know best about how to deliver and which and at what time that we need to blend our lesson. That's why it has to be designed. Because certain, you know, like for example, for this week, it is not suitable for me. Maybe it is not suitable for my students to have this session online. Then we have to meet face to face. So that's why it has to be designed. But for my case, they like the pre-recorded video, because I recorded that earlier for them to go through. I'll try to show that if I have them. Maybe before that, maybe we can have some other question while I open the.
Nurbiha, there are 3 questions in the chat box. There's 3 questions in the chat box.
The pie chart. The pie chart is based on the data that we key in. Yes. If you have a lot of time allocated for reading, watching, and listening, that means your pie chart is bigger. So the pie chart is based on the activities that you have keyed in and the time that you have keyed in the platform. Calendar, okay. How to develop students' foundation and ensure them to master the foundation of any discipline. How to develop students' foundation and to ensure them master the foundation of any discipline. I can only speak based on my knowledge area in teaching computer science. So first, my students need to understand the concept of, for example, programming concepts. They have to understand certain terminologies, certain new words that is maybe they do not know of this certain word before. So for that case, I do have face-to-face teaching and learning session. For example, I want to teach them about the word debugging or the word bugs. So they never know what it means by debugging and bug before in their real world context. So for that purpose, I do that in face-to-face teaching. But I have this activity, maybe I'll just share, maybe, I don't know whether it is relevant. I have this activity called concept test. This concept test is the sole purpose of me having this concept test is I want them to master the concepts. The word bugging, how is that different than debugging? The word programming, how it is different than programming language. So certain things I do have to do that face to face. That one I have to admit. Then I have more engaging activities when we have that face to face. But because the nature of my course is dealing a lot with screen, I have to demonstrate things to them on screen. It is more effective for me to deliver a pre-recorded video and then have them practice on their own. So that is how I do that. I hope that answers the question. Do you monitor if the students actually view the video lectures? No, I do not monitor if the students actually view the video lectures. What I tell myself is that I have done my part and I respect my students. I mean, I tell them that I prepare this. This is my effort in preparing these materials for you. I pre-recorded these video sessions, these video lectures. Okay. But because after they watch the video, they have to do the activities, and then I'm going to meet them later, 10 minutes before the class ends, to check on things that they have done. So if they do not watch the video that I gave, so they cannot do the learning activities that I assign. And these learning activities that I assign, these are the things that I monitor. I do not monitor whether they watch the videos or not, but I monitor whether they can do the learning tasks that I give or not. So if they can do the learning tasks, probably they watch my video or they watch somebody else's video. But what matters to me is that they are able to carry out the learning tasks that I give, which I monitor. So that's how I do it. I didn't monitor whether they actually view the video lectures. But I did a little research on what are the things that can contribute to my students' performance based on the way I carried out my teaching and learning session. And apparently, the students who scored higher tends to view the videos more frequently. So that's what I found. If they have higher performance, that means in their track record, they have been doing the concept test repeatedly. That is number one. And they have been watching the video more frequently than the others. That's what there are two things that contribute to their better learning performance in the course. Repeated concept tests, because as I said just now, I have this concept test in which I prepare multiple choice question, short multiple choice question, and then I tell them that you can redo this concept test again and again. I'm not going to take the marks. It's just for you to assess your own understanding. So it is sometimes 5 questions, and if I am, I have more time, then I prepare more questions, and sometimes it's just 3 questions, but it is just about the concepts in that week that I ask. So every week I prepare concept tests. So they repeatedly do this concept test until they get all correct. So that is what I found, because I opened the concept test all semester long, and then you can do that again and again for you to test your own understanding. So apparently these two things are contributing to their success in the course. That's what I found. Examples for other activities for non-face-to-face independent learning. So what we usually assume is that traditionally, what we assume for non-face-to-face independent learning, what we assume is that students carried out discussion with their friends. That is non-face-to-face independent learning. They also do revisions on their own. That is non-face-to-face independent learning. That's what traditionally what we assume they do when we allocate time for them to study on their own. So, but if you want to also have activities for non-face-to-face independent learning, you can have you can formalize these activities such as having this group discussion, forum session, or you can even have a simple practice session for them to practice for non-face-to-face independent learning. That would be how I do it in my course. That plan for activities that do not require you to be there. So that will be non-face-to-face independent learning when you want to think about that. Because independent learning means that you are not there. So think of the things that you can do that in which your presence is not necessary. Okay, I think there are so many things to do from that. Okay, concept arithmetic operators in one of the slides. May I ask what it means in terms of teaching and learning? Oh, this is just a concept related to my subject that I teach. Okay, so I teach computer programming, so I have that concept as an example. I'm trying to open my course. Okay, this is my course. Try to resume that. This is available. This is the previous course. See if I can still access that one. Or this one. But that's what I did for my course. I have pre-recorded videos and concept tests. Let's see if I can open that one. With clear instruction. So when you want to have a blended session, have clear instruction in which your presence is not needed to guide them what they have to do next. That is very important. If you want to blend your lesson, if you want to teach them, if you want to do the rotation model in which you meet them face to face, and then you want to after 5 minutes you want them to do things online, but they are doing things online in front of you, then maybe clear instruction is not needed because you're there to explain. Okay, but if you did not do that, okay, so this is how I do it. And for every class meeting, I have a pre-recorded video lesson. This is a pre-recorded lesson. I prepare that before my class. So here, for example, I have about 5 small short videos. Okay. And then after they watch the video, then they do the activities, and then at their own time and space, they can do the concept test that I mentioned just now. So that concept test, I calculate that as independent learning time. So here, so I have this concept test, and then I have homework. So in this homework, I explain what do they have to do in that homework, and then I dedicated. So all of this activity, I have instruction because I do not want them to reach me after that with asking what should I do next? What do I have to do today? So I do not want them to come to me for that kind of question. So your instructional material so has to be independent. So this is how I give instruction, the marks, what do they have to discuss, and then you have to mark that in red and so on. And then this is the concept test. So I have 32 attempts actually, when in fact I only have 20 students. So there are students who repeatedly attempted these quizzes. And for this one, I have 13 questions. So sometimes I have 10 questions. If I have more time, then I have more questions. So they can do this at their own time. I did not take this the score. I did not calculate the score as part of their assessment. So it's just for them to practice. Here I also have another concept test. I have the video lessons, pre-recorded video lessons, and I have the in-class activity that they have to go to whiteboard. And I have the concept test again that they can do independently. Okay, video lessons, the pre-recorded video lesson, concept test, and so on. So most of the time I have the combination of concept tests and pre-recorded video lessons. Similarly. Okay, that's what I did to ensure the way I blend my lesson is according to the specified student learning time, and I plan that, and I built the self-instructional material so that they can go through that without me being around. That may be some of the key takeaways that you can directly apply in your teaching and learning session when you want to blend your session, because it's important for you to design rather than having that, okay, today I think we have to do it online. Okay, that's all from me. I hope it's beneficial.
I have quite a lot of your questions, Dr. Nurbiha.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first one, I think, just now you mentioned you have some activities in class. If you could go back to the teaching plan, the one that you have with the form, the Excel file. I think was it given by the university, by the quality office, or?
Yeah. Yeah. This one is built by my office. So, what was the question? This is for another subject.
Yes. This is sorry. This is from the quality office. This is for all courses, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for all courses, you have this because we have different structures between CDEX and CPD in IUM. I think CDEX you covers quality teaching and learning too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we are not actually cover this. So hopefully sometime soon we would be able to get similar template from the university. But in the meantime, what I want to ask is more on the how you define the face-to-face just now, because you mentioned you come around 15 minutes in the beginning of 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning of the class, and then to 15 minutes at when the class is about to end. So, but in here, when we declare the physical or the face-to-face time, because face-to-face covers the physical or online synchronous, right? We still have to declare it as full 3 hours, is it?
No. This is not the same lesson plan because I couldn't find my lesson plan for the activities that I done.
Okay.
So this is for EDD. This is for learning analytics course. But similarly, but if you have, if I meet them face to face online 10 minutes, I have to declare that as entirely online.
Okay, so you declare entirely online, which is online synchronous.
Yes, online synchronous.
Okay. So
and for the concept test, I calculate that as things that they have to do at their own time and space. So I calculate the time for concept tests that they have to do as online asynchronous independent learning.
Okay, all right. So I think that's clear for that part. Just want to again know the process in UTM. For PTG, you endorse in Senate, correct?
No. We just, what happened is that all course owner, they have to declare that they have to send their course information, this detailing of calculation, to their program coordinator or their head of program, and then the head of program has to table this at faculty level.
I see. So the endorsement is from the faculty level.
Faculty level, yes.
Okay.
But at my center, I do collect this information about how many courses are carrying out PTG.
I see. Okay, so those information is for at your level is for notification only, but approval is at faculty level.
Yes, but before we carried out all this implementation, initially when we want to carry out PTG, my center gained the approval from Senate, University Senate, for approval whether we have this PTG implementation throughout university. So when it is being executed, when University Senate agrees that, okay, you can do PTG, and these are the things that, we are going to cover when we do PTG, and this is how we are going to do it. Once they endorse that, then we give the power to faculty to execute how many courses that you want to do for PTG, and we just collect the information, how many courses has been carried out, is conducted in the PTG week. That's all.
I see.
But the initial agreement from the university, the initial blessing from the university to have PTG implementation is done by my center. So we did have blessing, we did get blessing for the University Senate to implement PTG. And once they say, yes, you can agree, you can do that, then we go to faculty, this is how you are going to do that. So, and then we are going to monitor that from faculty level.
Okay, all right. But so far, any issues that we have to anticipate, because we are yet to get the blessing on PTG. Blended is already, of course, it's compulsory for all lecturers, but PTG is a different ball of game. So I think we have to be specific on expectations.
Yeah, I think number one, monitoring wise, because although people can declare that, I have these 3 hours asynchronous, and as we said just now, we can have 40-40-20. There is no way of telling right now in UTM whether is it true you have this 40-40-20 distribution. In UTM, there is no way of us knowing yet. So we are still trying to figure out the mechanism for us to identify. After you allocated 36 hours you want to do online, so how did you carry out this 36 hours according to 40-40-20 implementation? Is that true? It is 40-40-20, or is it 20-60-10, or is it 20-5-5? So there's no way of telling that right now in UTM. But we believe that after the pandemic, because everyone is getting used to building things online, so we somehow are not at the level of checking everyone whether you have 40-40-20 allocation. So that will be the challenge. Maybe it will be good if maybe IIUM can establish mechanism for you to monitor whether this 40-40-20 is being implemented. Because right now in UTM, we are just at the level of holding on to how many hours you want to do online. That's it. So we know, okay, this course has 36 hours online. This course has 40 hours online, 48 hours online. That's all. We are holding on to that. But we do not go detail into, okay, after you have declared 36 hours, how you carried out that 36 hours. We are not at that level yet. But it's good that if at university level, you can go into detail to that detail first, and then only table up that to University Senate. Maybe they would be interested in knowing, okay, how can we know this 40-40-20? What happened if they did not do 40-40-20? They only 5-5-10. They do only 5-5-10. So who are going to, check on that quality-wise?
Okay, all right. And last is on the homework. Just now you distribute. Okay, so this is the for the self-instruction materials. You have the videos and whatnot, and activities, and it ends with the homework. So you discuss that homework on the next class, or do you actually have a different asynchronous that you go through all those homeworks, discuss all those homeworks?
I have the synchronous session for that, for homework, the next day, for this class meeting, the next day.
I see. Okay, so it actually carries into the next topic. So you discuss the past homework and then you proceed to the next topic. Is it?
But because the nature of this homework is that they have to exchange the answers with their students, with their friends. And I ask them to mark that in red, in which my instruction is that, they have to discuss and mark the answers, mark which one is wrong among themselves. The one that they have marked with their friend, then only they submit that. So in a way, they have already checked their answers with their friends when they submit their answers. I want them to submit the marked answers. I want them to discuss with their friend first, which one is wrong, which one is right, the one that you do and the one with your friends do. And then only you submit that. So it becomes easier for me, to look at things, why all of you get this one wrong. So I will look into that.
This happen outside the class, right? Because it's homework.
Yeah. This one, marking of the answers among themselves happens outside the class.
I see. And it's become formative assessment, I assume?
No, I did not. Sorry. Yes, this is formative assessment.
Okay.
I give weightage to this assessment, which is 1%.
I see. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. No other questions?
So any more questions? Or else we can finish earlier.
Or perhaps if Dr. Biha wants to add any info, because you're the pengurusi of MEPTA, so any info from the KPT that we should be aware of?
I think I don't know, nothing much. It's just that maybe in the guideline, in this guideline, because it is in Malay, so in this guideline, they do not detail out and they do not emphasize on the preparation of SIM. So that's why I included in this session, in this sharing session, the importance of preparing self-instructional material. Because I think when you replace your face-to-face teaching session with online and you are not there, you highly need self-instructional material. That one is not really emphasized in this guideline. Because people assume that, when you want to replace your face-to-face teaching with online teaching, that means I'm going to have lecture for 2 hours with my students. So it's not necessarily that way, because we know from our experience that you can have like online fatigue and screen fatigue and so on. So you can have only 10 minutes of live synchronous session, and we have these money issues and financial issues with our students with credits and all. So you can have 10 minutes only to meet them online, and then but you have to build your self-instructional material and have them go through at their own time and space, and then you maybe meet them at the end of it to continue the discussion about the things that you have prepared. So this is not really emphasized in these guidelines, and I'm afraid that many of us will, replace the online session with lecture session, 2 hours of lecture session. So try to build your self-instructional material, because you can always use that again and again. So the pain is only at the beginning. So later on is not so painful. Okay. So try to do that. It will be a blessing for you, actually. For us, as academician, we can always use that again and again. So that would be my takeaway maybe from the session. It is not that difficult to implement blended learning substitution, but just be aware of the the way we implement that, and then the SLT, of course. Okay, but you can always check that one, because we are all experienced teachers, then we can somehow know, okay, how many minutes or how many hours our student will take to go through certain materials, the intensity of the content that we are going to teach. So I don't think that is very difficult to estimate. This one, it is based on estimation, and there is no telling that you are wrong and I'm right, so There's no way of telling the estimation of the student learning time. So you always know the estimation okay, at the back of your mind. I think that's all.
There's a question, Dr. Bia, in the chat box.
Opinion on the distribution of blended for language teaching. Yeah, we highly encourage 40-40-20. This 40-40-20 is guide. The name of the book is guideline. So, but of course, university or a higher education institution level, we usually want to have these monitoring measures. That's why we have specific numbers. But always, as a owner of the content, as the content expert, subject matter expert, you always know what's best. I am not sure in terms of language teaching whether 40-40-20 is suitable, but 40-40-20, the number is coined based on a previous study, and then we put that in this guideline. So we did not coin the 40-40-20 out of nowhere. So we also refer some previous studies on the proposed percentages if you want to have your teaching and learning session online. So, and what the study suggests, that is 40-40-20, 40% learning materials, 40% of learning activities, and 20% of assessment. However, you can always justify what are the things that you do, and then you know that 40-40-20 maybe is not suitable for language teaching. And again, this also depends on, you know, at university level, maybe you can decide certain range and not specifically that range. It always can be adjusted and you know, adapted accordingly. It's just that for monitoring purposes, you know, usually at university level they want to monitor the quality, so that's why they put up this figure, this number as a guide. But hardly we can see many institutions usually follow the 40-40-20 because it is easier for them to monitor and to monitor the quality. We have certain standards as all. That would be.
So, any more questions? Okay. Okay, Prof, can we end?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, and also, before we conclude, I just want to give some, I'm not sure whether I should call it heads up, but KPT have a lot of initiative, right? Especially when it comes to flexible educations, and this could actually be contributing a lot to more initiative to come, because flexible educations would very much promote the use of technology in our teaching and learning. We have survived the 2 years of COVID, where everyone were pushed on the fly to implement blended learning, or fully, I'm not sure whether it's really blended learning would be the suitable terms for that particular 2 years, but we have experienced that. So I really hope, know that we have a lot of information from Dr. Biha today, especially when it comes to calculations, because there's a lot of questions. Can I replace the entire contact hours with online materials? But Dr. Biha have explained very extensively that it is not ODL. We shouldn't design it as ODL. So all those elements are still in place. It's just as a matter of how we strategize the approach so that it will be more meaningful. We are in IUM, we are yet to decide whether PTG or the Radun Gantian will be the substitutions, the blended learning substitutions will need to go through the Senate level. But as soon as we have all the administrative matters settled, because for blended learning, for support, it's already been in place, but it's just for substitutions, we will inform all the all kuliah as well as the academic staff on what are the things that you need to prepare if you decided to go with the blended learning substitution, inshallah. So again, I would like to thank Dr. Biha, Dr. Sadri, and Sister Nurul for the session, and as well as all the participants. Okay, thank you. I'll send back the session. I'll give back the session to Dr. Sadri. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Viha, for the valuable training. I think we learned a lot to differentiate between blended learning support and blended learning substitute. So I hope the training will help us to improve our current lesson plan and also course outline in the futures. And also I would like to thank Sister Nurul for her assistance today. And to all the participants, please do not forget to fill in our evaluation form, which is very important to us in CPD so that we can improve the training in the futures. All right, in case that you miss certain part of the training, don't worry, we will upload the recorded video to our CPD website. And we'll email the link to you. So let's end our training with recitation of Surah Al-As and Tasbih Kifarah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Biha.
Thank you.
Dr.
Thank you very
Biha.
much, everyone. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Sadri, I shared the slide on the Zoom platform. It seems like it is loading. It's still uploading. I'm going to email that to you as well. But that
okay.
All right.
Yeah. Email to me. That would be nice.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Assalamualaikum.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Biha. Thank you so much.
Waalaikumsalam. Assalamualaikum.